In this presentation, I reveal the ambiguities in ISO 9001-2015 as to what it tells us a quality management system is. There is considerable ambiguity in ISO 9001-2015. Firstly, in the definition of a quality management system. Secondly, in the scope of the system, that is, what is included and excluded from it. Thirdly, whether what is integrated into business processes are requirements or elements. And lastly, to what processes the process approach is intended to apply. So how does ISO 9001 define a QMS? Well, it's defined as a set of interrelated or interacting elements of an organization to establish policies and objectives and processes to achieve those objectives with regard to quality. According to the ISO glossary, the word establish means set up. Therefore, the implication here is that the QMS does not implement the policies, achieve objectives, or run processes. It merely sets them up. So, is the QMS to which ISO 9001 refers a system from which the organization takes outputs, and therefore is a system which the organization sets up to run operations? QMS to establish policies, objectives and processes, there must be a point when it is established. So when might that be? If we look at the sequence of activities the standard requires us to carry out, we should find the point at which we are supposed to establish the QMS. Clause 4.1 requires we set strategic direction and determine the issues affecting the ability of the QMS to achieve its intended results. Clause 4.2 requires we determine the needs of the interested parties, and Clause 5.1 requires we get top management commitment with respect to the QMS. Clause 5.2 requires we establish the quality policy, and Clause 5.3 requires we assign roles and responsibilities. Clause 6.1 requires we determine risks when planning for the QMS. Note, not when planning the QMS. And then Clause 7.1.1 requires we determine resources to establish the QMS, implying we have not yet established it. And then Clause 4.3, 4.4, 6.1, 7.1.1 requires we scope, establish and resource the QMS, but we still don't have a point where we establish it. So, are we required to do all these things before a QMS exists, implying these processes are outside the scope and must be part of another system, perhaps a management subsystem? A system is defined by ISO 9000 as a set of interrelated or interacting elements. But what this doesn't tell us is that they form an integrated whole. So we can have planning components, control components, resources, operations, all related and interacting to produce products and services, and influenced by the external environment. And this is a model of the organization as viewed as a system. And clearly people are part of this system, or else no products and services could be produced without them. Clause 4.4 requires the organization to establish a quality management system, assuming a QMS does not already exist in any form. If the quality management system is an integrated whole, then where is the QMS? Where does it fit? Is it here, 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 or here? Doesn't seem to fit as a whole at all. So let's look at integrating them. There's a clause, 511D, requires the integration of the quality management system requirements into the organization's business processes. But therefore, is the quality management system a collection of related requirements, or do they mean elements? Do we integrate the elements or the requirements? So if the QMS is a series of elements or requirements, where do they fit? Fit in control, business process, the resource process, planning processes, operational processes. So we could see this is where they can be integrated as part of the existing business processes. So, is the quality management system not a system at all, but simply a collection of requirements or elements related by serving the same objective? In clause 0.3, right at the front of the standard, it says that consistent and predictable results are achieved more effectively and efficiently when activities are understood and managed as interrelated processes that function as a coherent system. But which processes is this referring to? Is it the management processes, the operations processes? And which system is this referring to? Is it the quality management system, or the environmental management system, or just the management system? A process is defined as a set of interrelated or interacting activities which use inputs to deliver an intended result. So a set of activities that doesn't deliver an intended result is not a process, is it? Seems a very odd definition. Tim seems to imply that activities that unintentionally deliver non-conforming outputs are therefore not processes, which can't, of course, be true. And then in clause 4.1, it requires the processes needed for the QMS to be determined. But does this apply to all processes or only those which produce intended results? As the QMS is not established until after executing planning and resourcing, this excludes most of the management processes from the QMS. Here we have again the model of the organization as a system, with the planning processes, control processes, resource management processes, operations processes, all of which function together as an integrated whole to produce the products and services that meet customer requirements. So is the QMS the management subsystem that establishes those processes? Well, it would make sense if the QMS is established first, but the way the requirements are expressed in ISO 9000 tends to suggest that it is not. Or is it the delivery subsystem? Well, that would make sense because there's a lot of requirements in ISO 9000 that relate to operations, but there's also many that don't, that relate to other subsystems. Or is it the delivery and control subsystem? Well, that would make sense if the QMS is a self-regulating system, and evidence of that is the fact that there are to be objectives and measurements taken to determine whether the organization is achieving those objectives. So it would tend to indicate it's self-regulating. Or is it all subsystems, implying that this is the coherent system? That would make sense if the intended result of a QMS is conforming products and services, but then it's already integrated, doesn't need to be integrated again. So is the QMS to which ISO 9001 refers an integrated whole from which the organization takes its outputs? A collection of related requirements or elements that are integrated into the business processes and is therefore not a system at all? the delivery subsystem of an organization, the delivery and control subsystems, or another name for the combination of the management and delivery subsystems. I'll leave you to ponder, but if you have any questions, please submit them to me by email at this address.